Hi everyone! Welcome to episode 7 of Little Storyteller Lee's Guide to Getting Hired. Today I'll talk about the biggest elephant in the room, pay. We are used to pay being linear. Merit increases were about us getting more value every year because we had one more year of experience underneath our belts, and that made us more expert and more valuable. And then performance bonuses and promotions came along to reward us in the years when we made outsized contributions. It was a huge shock to me when in 2025, I discovered just how disproportionately I was overpaid relative to the direction that the market was moving. It wasn't because my skills were declining, but because the profile of paid social marketing is shifting from being analytically oriented to content oriented. Lots of people who changed jobs within the past 12 months have found that their new roles are not paying them as much as their previous roles did. It's unpleasant, but unfortunately, this is more about the underlying economics than about individual ability. If you feel that this was not what you deserved, I fully empathize. We tend to equate pay with our professional value. But unfortunately, when technology reshapes where expertise is needed, we are merely feeling the after effects of what happens when AI takes on the most valuable parts of our roles, and our roles are shaped for a time when AI didn't do the same things that it does today. Add this onto a landscape where the nature of businesses is changing, and we have got a double whammy. If 2024 was the year that generative AI took on steam, 2025 was the year when agentic AI became a reality. Both combined, they are shaking up our workflows and where human expertise makes a difference within the system. Generative AI started first because Gen AI meant that the expertise of writers, artists, and filmmakers suddenly started to get flattened. Can AI write best-selling novels or create blockbuster films? Ne Zha 2 showed that AI is powerful, but it still required several thousand expert humans to create those show-stopping visuals. Nonetheless, at the level of ad creatives, which have high volume and short airtime, many companies decided that AI was good enough to drive cheap and fast scaling. So the perceived value of human expertise for producing marketing creatives fell for a time. This is starting to reverse now because the difference between prompting without judgment and prompting with a clear and compelling artistic vision is becoming obvious and hitting companies in the pocket. That's what the term skill premium is about, which Sangeet Paul Chowdhury refers to in his book Reshuffle. The market pays when your skills make the difference to their sales or profits. But when the perception is that a lower skilled person using AI can produce similar results to someone who's more experienced with higher level skills, then it's the skilled people who lose out the most because companies will not pay them extra for their ability. That's the point when everyone gets leveled to the bottom of their field because employers think that AI is what gives the edge and not human expertise or experience. This has been happening across other parts of the digital sector too. For example, analysts used to be valuable because their data extraction skills were what were needed to uncover which parts of the business needs to be optimized. But now, systems of LLM prompts invoking what we call Model Context Protocol or MCP can run the structured query language SQL that analysts used to run. They can provide data, charts, and recommendations on demand. That doesn't mean the analyst's skill sets are not valuable. To make a system like this work, someone needs to understand the data thoroughly and to ensure that data field names, joins between tables, and the consistency of data definitions across the whole company are flawless so that it becomes perfectly intuitive for the LLM to interpret. An analyst who gets the chance to do this and has the right domain expertise will set up and become accountable for such a system, and they will become extremely valuable. But those who are known purely for their speed and accuracy in standard data pools will be competing with the cost and speed of AI. What usually gives employees whiplash is when companies retrench during years when they are profitable. I'm not saying this is fair, because the question of how much a worker has contributed and their right to a continued share of the growth that they have driven depends so much on individual circumstances. Yet, one thing that is hard for us to wrap our heads around when we stay in employee mindset is that we are the most valuable in the face when companies are growing. In the growth stage, nothing is routine. The journey of test and learn is when human decision making, experimentation, and strategy can make or break things. But when all the wins are reaped and the business line is stable, that's when rinse and repeat is the formula for continuing to win. This is when junior staff who are cheaper might fit the bill for execution, and now efficiencies are being reaped by automating processes with AI. In other words, you get the highest pay when your employer isn't winning yet, because that's when they need you most. Once they are winning, you need to move on to where your skills are needed most to help somebody else win. If we tie this back to episode 5, when I talked about building your career strategy as an infinite game and about how you own your expertise but rent your skills, this is the crux of it. When you're renting your skills out, you're at the mercy of your landlord, who is your employer. When you own, you bear more market risk, but you have more control. Lastly, I want to talk about the types of companies that are hiring, especially in the e-commerce sector. The past 2 decades were about growing giants. FAANG and Microsoft, Uber, the big OTAs or online travel agents, as well as traditional retailers going online. But recently, there's been a bloodbath. With huge cloud computing capacity and the emergence of more complex algorithms, the advantage of having lots of data is skewing massively towards the biggest players. This means consolidation has been the way of life for mid-tier enterprises. For example, I'm a crafter. I thought Joanne came out pretty well from the pandemic because they were affordable for hobbyists and they had more scale than some of the boutique shops that were struggling. But now, last year they were bought over by Michaels. Departmental stores are struggling. And a few years ago, I had to job hop just to avoid a layoff because I knew the company I was working at would be going under. Listed companies with multi-billion-dollar revenues were the ones who could drive up salaries to get the top talent they wanted. But the challenge came when those levels of pay set expectations for everyone else in the market. Startups in their growth phase can't pay that level of salaries, although they need to attract talent. And meanwhile, when the bigger companies consolidate, the total number of roles available at companies of that size will go down. This is why hinging our hopes on salary is setting us up for disappointment in this climate. It's painful, but when the market is full of uncertainty for companies of every size, the harsh reality is that they can't afford to pay us the way they used to. In conclusion, I believe the answer is not that we should never ask for more, but that we need to strategize when and from whom to do so. Know yourself and know the times when your expertise is what makes a difference to a business. Ask yourself, how much growth can this company achieve in the next year? And how critical is the role they're considering you for to getting them there? That is how you have a handle on what your bargaining power is. But bear in mind, this equation changes from year to year. You need to constantly review your position and adjust accordingly. It's currently a very tough market because companies are all on edge in case they get disrupted. Nobody knows what the next commercial breakthrough will be with generative AI because everyone is using it, but nobody has seen a steady and sustained profit from it yet. When companies aren't sure of what will make them money next, it means that they don't have a strategy on how to slot new people in. That, as you can imagine, creates a stagnant hiring market. I feel that the best strategy we can adopt as individuals within this time of instability is to take whatever path is most pragmatic, whether it means doing whatever job sustains a living income or exploring low-risk, low-cost micropreneur activities, or even a mix of both. To wrap up on this series, I started talking about jobs because in December, we had a lot of optimism that the hiring season would revive in 2026, and I wanted to share my thoughts with my network so that everyone could be prepared for it. But it's now 2026 and things are still in a messy middle. So let's all give ourselves grace, but be prepared, aware, and flexible. All the best, and let's go own 2026. I'll be transitioning to my official content, which will include industry insights by Little Storyteller Lee and demos from the AI Auntie in a few weeks' time after my exec education wraps up. My daily diary of Auntie Back to School will continue in the notes section and on LinkedIn, and I will come up with some ad hoc episodes along the way. For those of you who celebrate the Lunar New Year, wishing you a very, very happy year of the horse, and watch this space for a full launch by March 2026. Bye-bye!